Welcome into College Basketball Live with our national champion, Miles Simon, and a man who's covered a lot of national championships.
And I covered that national championship.
Yes, he did.
That's how old I am.
Brought us a little bit of luck.
Yes.
All right, that's why you guys keep it tight over there. By the way, I'm Max Bredos, but coming up, highlights from an unforgettable first SEC road game for Texas A&M. For the second straight year, a Syracuse big man dealing with off-court issues. We will talk about what impact that might have for the Orange, but we start with a huge matchup on our journey to the tourney. Coming into Saturday, #1 Duke and Michigan, the last of the D1 unbeatens. Blue Devils put their 15-0 record on the line against NC State, and Miles, using the ESPN Axis, we saw how this offense worked.
Well, look at Lorenzo Brown. He draws so much attention to himself, had tied his career-high 13 assists. 4 Duke defenders staring at the basketball. TJ Warren sneaking behind the defense.
Richard Howell was big in more ways than one, Andy.
He is the team's MVP. He's got 18 rebounds in this game for 16 points. He's essentially it inside. He doesn't get a lot of pub, but Howell needs to rebound for this team to win.
This is not necessarily a good rebounding team, but they pushed it, got some points in the transition. They had an 8-point lead.
And let's remember, Ryan Kelly sat out this game. He's arguably Duke's best defender in the post.
And he could have made a difference there. Seth Curry hit the 3. He had 22 points, but bad news here is he turns his knee.
Yeah, Seth Curry, he's a guy who's been limited in practice, and here just comes off, hurts his ankle a little bit. No telling how long he's going to be out for.
He would remain down, but he would get up, would not return to the game. NC State went for it. C.J. Leslie, 25 points, as NC State would hang on for the upset. Janine Edwards caught up with Mark Gottfried after.
Well, I think we had a lot of toughness, and we rebounded the ball in the second half. First half, we couldn't get a rebound. We defended them well, and we finished it with a rebound. Our guys showed a lot of toughness today. Well, I'm proud of them.
Now, you had 4 guys on this team that were part of that bitter loss to the Blue Devils last season. What was the statement that they wanted to make today?
Well, we went in there last year and played well, but we didn't win. So they remember that, and our young guys helped us. But again, they accepted the challenge. They accepted the challenge, and they played really hard, and really hard.
And the Wolfpack get that marquee win, and they move to the top of the ACC standings by themselves for now at 3-0. Miles, they did a lot of things right, but what stood out to you the most?
The thing that NC State really does better than almost anyone else in the country, they get out in transition and they can run. And it's their bigs that can run the floor and really finish in transition. And we'll see this tonight. We'll spotlight this. The made basket. And they get it out, 2 dribbles, Lorenzo Brown, and we see Richard Howell just sprinting the floor, outworking the Duke post players. Murphy, Plumlee don't get back. Easy finish in transition. And here the defense leading to offense. Eyes up right away. Sees Purvis in transition. Excellent finish. NC State, second in the country in transition points per game at 22 points per game. They really dominated Duke on that. 5 guys across half court here. Only 2 back for the Blue Devils. Nobody stops the basketball. Lorenzo Brown goes coast to coast. They clean it up because they have 5 guys there. Nobody on Duke gets back. And then here, Coach K is going to be really upset about this. After a made basket, you give them a score in transition in 4 seconds. NC State, even though they only play 6 guys, really love to run, and they made the Blue Devils pay today.
And Miles, as Miles mentioned earlier, Ryan Kelly is out. Now Seth Curry could be out. We don't know the details. Do you have any information on that injury?
Well, first of all, as for Ryan Kelly, the status with him has unchanged. His foot is in a protective boot, and the Duke staff not saying how long he's going to be out. As for Seth Curry, Mike Krzyzewski, the head coach of Duke, said after the game that he slipped on a wet spot there on the floor and that he'll be okay. And Duke associate head coach Chris Collins telling me late on Saturday that it is a sprained ankle, but they expect him to play in their next game on Thursday at home against Georgia Tech. So here's the question, Miles. You got a player that's got now a sprained ankle. He's had this leg injury that he's been dealing with. Doesn't practice much at all throughout the course of the season. They got Georgia Tech next. Then the game after that, they're at Miami. Why does Seth Curry have to play against Georgia Tech?
I don't think he has to play against Georgia Tech. He's already been resting in practices, only shoots around, really doesn't scrimmage. I would take my time. This is a Duke team that wants to compete for a national title, so you don't want lingering injuries throughout the season. Let's take care of business against Georgia Tech. They should have the weapons to be able to do that without Seth Curry in the lineup. And then 11 days later, from today, they have to go to Miami. Let's get them ready for that game because that game is going to be tougher.
As we saw in the week, Miami, with their win over Carolina, can play. You need to be fully loaded for that one.
And right after that, they got Maryland at home. So tougher schedule after that. That's why Georgia Tech.
But I think
why not rest them?
You have to think big picture.
Right.
That's what they should be thinking.
All right, there are 3 Big Ten teams in the rankings of the top 10. 2 of them meeting in Bloomington. Number 8, Minnesota. Number 5, Indiana. Gophers have won 11 straight. And they would run into a stiff Indiana defense. Kevin Farrell with the deflection and the layup at the other end. It was a great first half, Andy, for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, no question for Indiana. I mean, the way they played in the first half was a little bit reminiscent to the way Indiana played against North Carolina in that first half during the ACC Big Ten Challenge.
Another transition basket. Jordan Hull's Miles 4-3. And does the best as
and that was created by Victor Oladipo on the right side, sprinting all the way to the rim, drawing the defense. Hull spots up from NBA land.
And there's Oladipo again, forcing the turnover. Indiana running the floor, which they do, I think, better than almost any team in the country. Look how they finished the first half.
52-29. Second half, here come the Gophers. We use the Axis. Andre Hollins beating out to Zeller.
Well, Zeller, just the big man. You love to see your 7-footer sprinting back and not giving up any easy layups.
Big dunk for Zeller. It's a 20-point lead for the Hoosiers, but it was a furious comeback midway through the second half, but they would come up short, 88-81. IU started scoring 85 points of those 88. And Miles, who are you most impressed by, Minnesota coming back or Indiana holding on?
More impressed by Minnesota coming back. In the first half, they were so sloppy with the basketball. 12 turnovers in the first half. Gave up 7 threes to Indiana in the first half. Cleaned all that up, down 23, made it a game in the last minute, only down 3 with Jordan Hull at the line missing.
You know, some of the concern, I think, for Indiana is the way they finished that game. I mean, you had Jordy Hulls missing a couple of key free throws. As high as I've been on Victor Oladipo, the way he makes game-changing plays, 3 times during the game he fouled a three-point shooter. Late in the second half, he fouled a three-point shooter. But it really came down to a weak side rebound by Cody Zeller getting from Trevor Mbakwe that really was the difference late in the game, or else Mbakwe gets that, they put it in. Suddenly it's a one-possession game. Then Jordy Hulls makes the free throws at the end. But a little dicey finish for Indiana. That's a concern.
It could have been a great week for Minnesota. They won at Illinois, just fell short in the end against Indiana.
They shouldn't drop in the polls, by the way.
Yes,
in the top
don't drop them. Syracuse announced that James Sutherland is out until further notice due to an unspecified eligibility matter. Sutherland, the 6th man for the Orange, averaging 13.6 points, second best on the team. Last season, Syracuse suspended Fab Melo for a similar eligibility issue. 7th-ranked Qs without him hosting Villanova. Orange have lost 3 of 4 at home to the Wildcats. And as for James Sutherland, Jay Billis had this to say.
Sutherland is an experienced player that can shoot the ball from deep. He's the type of player that can get you 5, 6, 7 threes in any given game and can really stretch the defense.
He wasn't there. First half, Syracuse down 1. They had their hands full. C.J. Fairford, Jeremy Grant, who could have benefited with Sutherland out, Andy.
And he may have to the long term. The second semester starts on Monday at Syracuse, so this academic issue is going to have to be resolved here shortly, or Grant may have to play a ton more.
It's a 3 by Ashraf Yakubu, then Michael Carter-Williams for Rakeem Christmas. Miles, Syracuse in a tight one, pulled away late.
Yeah, Syracuse, they're really going to need James Sutherland down the stretch. He's their best 3-point shooter. But they couldn't, they were able to survive without him today, but impacts the game kind of like Dion Waiters did last year for the Cuse.
Last year's 6th man.
You know what's interesting, though? Since he had those 9 threes against Arkansas when he had 35 points way back on November 30th, he's 15 of 55 on threes, 27%. So he's actually been heading in the wrong direction. Still, their best 3-point threat.
Much more on the situation with Sutherland in the week to come. Much more ahead on College Basketball Live after being knocked from the ranks of the unbeaten Arizona, hoping to leave the state of Oregon with a win. The Miles Simons UA in Beaver Country. The shine of the great start to their season starting to come off for Illinois. Andy and Miles debate whether the Illini can make the Sweet 16. And UConn with a big upset today. Can the Huskies appeal their way into the Big East tournament? Find out. Katz's Corner. Welcome back to College Basketball Live. Time to tee up Miles and Andy on games that lit their fire today. Let's light that fire, all right? Arizona coming off their first loss of the season, facing Oregon State.
Well, first of all, he played in the Pac-12, Pac-10. I've always been a Pac-10, Pac-12 kind of guy. I love that it's back on ESPN. I was really intrigued to see what would happen in this Arizona-Oregon State game, because Arizona was coming off a loss on the road to Oregon. Oregon State lost at home to Arizona State. Ahmad Starks, one of their better shooters, but Arizona really played well consistently in this game. Solomon Hill making 5 3-pointers. They ended up making 10 3-pointers, got on the break, flushing like that. This was a quality win for Arizona. Remember, Oregon State still playing without Eric Moreland, who's suspended, and Angus Brandt, who is hurt.
16 points for Hill. They leave Corvallis with the win. Wisconsin hosting number 12 Illinois.
But here's the problem with Wisconsin. They opened the Big Ten with Penn State and at Nebraska, so we weren't sure how good they were. This was a good barometer for Wisconsin, and they lit up Illinois. It was 39-19 at the half. Wisconsin ended up playing 14 players. Look at the way they were cutting the backdoor cut there. Illinois looking kind of dysfunctional here. Remember, they lost at Purdue. Nice flush by Ryan Evans. Miles, is Illinois a Sweet 16 team? I think they're going in the wrong direction.
Not right now. They're a team that's too reliant on the three-point shot. 42% of their shots come from behind the arc. Woo. And if they're not hitting, they're not going to the Sweet 16.
How about Brandon Paul? He goes 1 of 11 from the field. Remember, he lit up Gonzaga on the road, which will still go down as one of the best non-conference road games.
Jared Bergeron, 15-12. How about Peyton Siva and Louisville hosting South Florida?
Well, it's interesting in this game. The big question, of course, was Shane Bohannon. He had a high ankle sprain. Suddenly we get word on Friday he's probably going to play. He ends up scoring 7 points, 12 rebounds, played 18 minutes off the bench. But it's all about Louisville's transition. Russ Smith, Peyton Siva, these guys get out and run. They need to do that because they went 3 of 18 on threes. Right now, Louisville, which heads to UConn on Monday, I think with the losses at the top of the poll, if Michigan does lose to Ohio State, if on Sunday, Louisville could end up being the #1 team in the country.
And wasn't that long ago, the Bulls were in the final 32 of the tournament. They shot 27% from the field.
Yeah, 3 of 17 on threes, not going to get it done, especially on the road.
John Calipari in Kentucky in the fortress that's Rupp Arena against Texas A&M.
How do you explain this? This is a Texas A&M team that lost to Southern a couple of weeks ago. Now they are 2-0 in the SEC. Elston Turner scores 40 points at Rupp Arena, 14 of 19 from the field, made 6 threes. The team made 9 of 19 from 3. Meanwhile, Kentucky shoots 33% on threes. They really struggled. No offensive consistency. They could not defend Elston Turner. A disastrous moment for Kentucky at home to Texas A&M in their first SEC road win.
Just like their football team, the basketball team, enjoying life in the SEC. Turner 48 and wins at 83-71.
How about A&M wins at Kentucky, and yet Auburn and Mississippi State are 2-0 in the SEC? The SEC is upside down right now.
It's making it a lot of fun. Let's stay in the SEC for you, Miles, and the games that caught your eye, beginning with number 10 Missouri and Ole Miss.
Well, the Missouri Tigers having to go on the road to Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, a team that I covered at the Diamond Head Classic, are led by that man. Murphy Holloway had a big game tonight. 22 points, 8 rebounds, 8 for 12 from the field. Really dominant inside. Remember, Missouri without their leading scorer, Lawrence Bowers, hurt his knee again last game, but Murphy Holloway gets to a strong hand. He's a physical player. But Ole Miss, this is a great win. They don't have to go to Missouri this year. So that's a quality win in the SEC for Ole Miss.
They ran them right out of Oxford. Comfortable 15-point win. Billy Donovan and the Gators taking on LSU.
Well, here's the team that's the favorite to win the SEC and probably go to the Final Four. I covered that game, Florida against Arizona. Florida has 2 losses on the season, a 1-point game at Arizona, and then on a semi-neutral floor to Kansas State. Kenny Boynton, really relishing his role, moved to 3rd all-time leading scorer in Florida history, knocking down the big jumper, 7 for 13, 4 for 8 from the 3 for Kenny Boynton today. This is what Florida does well. They spread the floor. Murphy knocking down the 3. So many weapons for this Gator team, and then they also get it done on the defensive end, turning defense to offense, beautiful transition finish there for the Gators.
20 points for that man, Kenny Boynton. They win it by 22. Let's go for the Mountain. Steve Fisher and San Diego State hosting Colorado State.
The Mountain West, arguably the deepest conference in the West right now. When you talk about UNLV, New Mexico, San Diego State, Boise State, Wyoming, and then you throw this Colorado State team in, a team that was down 18 points in the half. Colton Iverson there tying it up to send it into overtime. But San Diego State, too much Chase Tapley, Jamal Franklin getting it done in the overtime period, holding that home court advantage there. Chase Tapley, the senior, who kind of does it all for Steve Fisher and his squad. San Diego State team is going to be very dangerous, especially come tournament time.
No highlight reel dunk from Franklin. When you dunk like that, we expect to see some more. But they did get the win in OT. Number 17, Notre Dame taking on UConn. Notre Dame's last home loss, Miles, January 14th of 2012 to the Huskies.
Well, Kevin Ollie's just done a great job in his short time being the head coach for UConn. Shabazz Napier, 8 for 13 from the field, knocks down 3 threes. You love to have your best player playing his greatest on the road, but then when you get contributions from Tyler Olander, 16 points, 7 boards for a guy that only averages 4.5 points per game, that's how you're able to pull off upsets on the road. And then now you're getting silly, throwing lobs to Ryan Boatwright, who's less than 6 feet tall, and he's throwing it down with ease. UConn pulling off the upset by 7 against Notre Dame.
They end that lengthy win streak for the Irish. And even though they may not go to the postseason, sending a message they're ready to play. For more on UConn, it's time for Katz's Corner.
Well, another impressive Big East win for the UConn Huskies as they win at Notre Dame in the same week they absolutely destroyed DePaul. And behind the scenes, there's a little bit of politicking going on with the UConn administration and the Big East. Remember, they are banned not just from the postseason with the NCAA or NIT, but they also cannot go to the Big East tournament. And the athletic director, Ward Manuel, and the president, Susan Herbst, they're trying to convince, likely to no avail, their Big East colleagues, especially because they've got some loyalty issues that they're staying in the Big East. Hey, let us compete in the Big East tournament, even though we can't go to the postseason, but likely not going to happen. Scary, scary fall earlier on Saturday. Rodney Clark at Dayton. This occurred early in the basketball game. Clark had to go to a Dayton hospital, and he was quoted later in the day saying that he had tingling, could not feel below his neck at one point, carried off on a stretcher. But great news for Rodney Clark as he tweets this photo, at least Brad Stevens, head coach, tweets this photo, that he is going to be okay. He was so blessed, he said, to be walking, made the trip back to Indianapolis on the team bus. And Brad Stevens texted me later on Saturday saying that, look, he's going to take all the time he needs to get healthy. They will just play his position by committee going forward. Now, big news out of the Mountain West Conference. Boise State head coach Leon Rice has reinstated his leading scorer, Derek Marks, and also Darius Hamilton and Mike Thompson in time for Wednesday's showdown against New Mexico at the Taco Bell Arena. This is after Boise State did not have these 3 players in a road win at Wyoming. Now, the one other player that was suspended, that's Kenny Buckner. He will return for a January 23rd game against Fresno State. Now, you can catch all this kind of information, little news, little analysis, little breakdown on the debut of our new show, Katz's Corner, Tuesdays at 4:30 p.m. on ESPNU. That follows the experts down at the U.
Coming up, the defending national champion Cats hurting after a rough week, but do our experts think they can still make the Sweet 16? And the baby Bruins growing up before our very eyes. Andy and Miles tell you if they believe UCLA will make the second weekend of the tournament, coming up in our starting 5. It's Big Monday, doubleheader coming up on ESPN, 7 p.m. Eastern. Number 3, Louisville faces UConn. It'll be followed from a game from the Big 12. Baylor taking on number 6, Kansas. Big Monday presented by Bud Light on ESPN. Time now for our starting 5, and tonight we'll play buy, sell, or hold on whether 5 particular teams will make the Sweet 16. And Andy, let's start with...
Have you seen the bracket?
Oh, yeah. I got some inside
Joe Lunardi
information.
has it out already.
Yes. All right. Well, let's start with the defending national champion, Kentucky Wildcats.
I'm going to hold on Kentucky. I'm not giving up yet. I mean, the Wildcats right now obviously did not look very good earlier on Saturday, giving up 40 points to Elston Turner, losing to Texas A&M at home. But there's too much talent here, guys, to abandon ship with Kentucky. They're young. They played young. I'm holding.
I'm going to sell on Kentucky. They're 10-5. They're 1-1 in conference. They only beat Vanderbilt by 2 points with 16 turnovers in that game. Still have point guard issues. Ryan Harrow, 11 turnovers in his last 3 games.
Vanderbilt, not a good team this year. How about Cincinnati? Miles, buy, sell, or hold the Bearcats making the second weekend of the tournament?
I'm going to hold on Cincinnati right now. They're really too reliant on their perimeter right now with Kilpatrick trying to do most of the scoring along with Kashmir Wright and Jaquan Parker. No low post scoring with no Yancey Gates down there. And then they've lost 3 of their last 5, all of them at home to New Mexico, St. John's, and Notre Dame.
You just gave me all the reasons why I'm selling. Mick Cronin, I'm sure, will text me on Sunday, but I am selling Cincinnati. Put it on the bulletin board. They have not done enough right now for me to believe that they're a second weekend team in the NCAA tournament.
Not sold that big win at Rutgers today. Okay. Let's head to the Big Ten. Andy, Michigan State have won 8 of 9. Buy, sell, or hold the Spartans for the second weekend.
I am holding on Michigan State because, first of all, you can never sell a Tom Izzo team in March. He always has his team ready to play. I saw this team in Germany. I saw them in Atlanta. Keith Appling, Gary Harris, they've got the perimeter to take them deeper into March. It's the front court that's a little erratic, a little questionable on the bench, but I would never sell a Tom Izzo team, no way in January.
And I'm going to buy this Tom Izzo team. Tom Izzo, one of the best coaches in the country. They're second in field goal percentage defense in the Big Ten right now. That's going to take you a long way in March. And I think Brandon Dawson will continue, obviously, to get healthier from the ACL injury. That just takes time to recover from. And then when you have the two big fellas, Nix and Payne, they'll have continued improvement.
Right back at you, Miles. Your former rivals out there in the Pac-10 when it was called. It was UCLA making it to the second weekend of the tournament. Do you like their chances? Buy, sell, or hold?
I'm going to buy the UCLA Bruins right now. They're one of the hottest teams in the country. They've won 7 in a row, had an excellent win against Missouri a couple weeks ago. Travis Ware playing his best basketball of his college career, 16.5 points per game over his last 5. They're doing it a different way this year, Andy. They lead the conference in scoring. Usually you hear about Ben Hallen in defense, but they're getting up and down. He's letting all those talented players, Shabazz Muhammad, Kyle Anderson, play.
Yeah, there's no question this team has gotten better through the attrition when they had a couple of transfers here at the midseason. But I'm not ready to put them in the second week, and that's why I'm holding right now. They've turned the corner with the 4-0 start with the victory over Colorado on Saturday. I like the way they're going in the upward trajectory, but I'm going to hold. I think they can win 1 game. I'm not ready to go in 2 in the NCAA tournament.
VCU having another great regular season. They know how to navigate through the tournament. Do you see them in the Sweet 16 come March?
I'm buying the VCU Rams.
There you go.
I agree with Jay Billis. He said this earlier on Saturday. I think this team is better than when they went to the Final Four 2 seasons ago. They've won 11 in a row. They forced 16 turnovers to beat St. Bonaventure. They've got a great shooter in Troy Daniels who had 11 threes to beat East Tennessee State. I'm buying the Rams.
Buy. Losses to Duke, Missouri, and Wichita State by an average of 4.5 points. They forced 21 turnovers per game. Havoc can be wreaked in the NCAA tournament by VCU.
A triple dose of buy from Miles Simon for VCU.
Likes the stocks.
There you go. Duke's loss means Michigan the only unbeaten in college hoops. Will the Wolverines go down against the Buckeyes on Sunday? Andy and Miles tell you next. Let's take a look at the 4 finalists for the Capital One Cup Impact Performance of the Week. Kansas freshman Ben McLemore, 33 points, perfect on 3-point attempts and free throws in an overtime win over Iowa State on Wednesday. McLemore hit the game-tying 3 to send the game into overtime. Kelly Olynyk scored 31 points for Gonzaga in a victory over St. Mary's on Thursday. Olynyk, the first Gonzaga player with 2 straight 30-point games since Adam Morrison did it in 2006. Doug McDermott, 39 points as Creighton won at Missouri State on Friday. McDermott made 14 straight field goals at one point, single-handedly outscored Missouri State in the second half. And Elston Turner, 40 points for Texas A&M in a win over Kentucky at Rupp Arena on Saturday. It was the most points by an A&M player in 28 years. Log on to ESPN.com/Capital One Cup to vote for this week's Impact Performance. One unbeaten left in college basketball. Michigan takes on Ohio State tomorrow. Who do you have?
Ohio State. Road Big Ten game.
That's tremendous. Miles Simon, Andy Katz, Max Bredoff. Good night.